Hello and welcome back. I'm Arlene of Intuitive Works with AMC. So I don't know, I know it hasn't been a long period of time, but it feels like so much has happened in such a short period of time that I feel like it's just been this never-ending journey. And, as I kind of pointed out in other videos too, like I feel like I'm part of this, or I've been in this shift, activation, upgrade, download, whatever you want to call it, forever. It feels like it's just never ending. It's just constantly layer upon layer being exposed, right? So but that's not exactly what the video is about, but it's kind of what's brought this up. And it's a video I've been wanting to make for a while. I already feel myself becoming emotional, and it's because I'm going to speak about my boys and our journey, with them being diagnosed with autism. And usually my boys, they're the main thing that causes me to really have emotions like bubble up. And it's just because, it's been such a big journey. It's been so profound and roller coaster ride. And I don't like roller coasters, so it's been interesting. Wow, sorry, it's so hard to put into words. I don't even know how to really start. So, and again, too, because I guess, I don't know, there's just been so much of it that there's so much, it's not that I don't remember, but it's like, I don't have specifics anymore, because with all the shifts and activations, it's like so much of that basically dissolves and melts away, because it doesn't really, there's nothing left there for me to look back on or to really tap onto to help us continue evolving and growing. And if it does show up, it's just more of to help express a point. Is kind of the way it's been translated to me through my inner realm. So, oh my gosh, okay. So, my oldest, who is 19 now, so he's 19 now. My youngest just turned 17 in August. And what's interesting is that, even though now they're at these ages, it's not that, it's not that it's all just like rainbows and unicorns now and we're all cool and, there's no, I guess, challenges. It's not that. It's just that it just changes. Their needs change. And as much as maybe I'm not physically needing to be so hands-on with things, physically to help them like it was when they were younger, but now it's very much, it's the emphasis on the emotional for them, the ability to regulate their emotions, help them to express their thoughts, helping them to, move through the fears and anxieties that they're feeling, moving out of the adolescent into the adult part. So the transitioning out of the, the set of programs and supports that are available here in Ontario, right where I am, Ontario, Canada. You get a certain amount of supports for the younger children until they turn 18. And then after that, they're transitioned into adult programming. And that is a totally different ball game. And it's scary. Like, it's very scary. And there's not as much, of course, sadly, as there is for the younger. which, you know, it's great that there is those supports for the younger children because they need it so much to help them evolve and grow. So, so basically, I don't know. So I've had, you know, again, because I've been, like, I'm not an expert. I don't have training, you know, in autism, or I'm not, you know, like a support worker in any kind of way. I'm just a mom who has 2 boys on the spectrum, and I can only express through the experiences that I've had with my boys. But I've had a lot of people who ask me, you know, to share my story, to share what I've learned, because they look at my boys and they see beyond autism, right? So it's not, you know, and sometimes they even say, like, it's interesting to think that they're even on the spectrum. And I know they mean that as a compliment, but, you know, it's kind of like, well, I don't know, like, it's not that it's an insult, but there's something else underneath that, right? But anyways, so in the younger stages, it was really difficult. And, you know, and that's what I mean. Like, sometimes I sit back and I can't even, right? I can't understand how I did what I did, how I moved through what I've moved through, how I've experienced the life I've experienced, and I'm not in a mental institution, right? Like, I really don't know. And, you know, I did what I had to do. Like, it was crazy. Like, it's just crazy. That's all I can say. It was just a crazy experience. You know, was it healthy? Now when you think about it, no. I broke me, basically. I broke me to a degree, because they are my world. And I stopped everything to just be at every single appointment that I could be at every single support group that I could go to, information, webinars, seminars, anything that was available to help me support my voice. I was there. Like, the joke, you know, at the center that I was at, like, that would help support my boys here where I live. Like, they're amazing. They're still amazing. They're still in our lives. And I am so grateful for Lansdowne Children's Center. They are heaven sent. I had an amazing team work with me and my boys. And so, yeah, sorry, I lost track there for a second. But yeah, so, okay. So, you know, here I am, you know, I have almost, like, I have a 2.5-year-old basically at this point. My youngest was just born. And so, at that time, there was this program called Healthy Babies, I think it was. And these nurses would come to your home and, you know, and do the milestones with you. And so at the beginning, my oldest, everything was cool. You know, he was meeting all the milestones. Then, so at that point, you know, he was already 18 months, I think, or so. It's like, okay, cool. You know, and then it was kind of like, okay, you know, and then they kind of like discharges you, right, from the service. Then what would happen is, so then my youngest was born. And at that time, again, like, what am I going to do? I'm a new mom still, even though I have a 2.5-year-old, but I'm still pretty new at this, right? And all of a sudden my second one comes along, and then it was these nurses that came, and they were noticing little, you know, changes in my oldest. And then they asked, you know, if I knew anything about autism, you know, and if I'd be willing to have an assessment done. So, and that's basically how that one started, right? So that kind of started with that. And then my oldest, eventually we went to see different specialists and stuff like that, people who then diagnosed him. with the autism spectrum. And then because it's kind of routine, when you have one, they just kind of automatically at a certain age, they assess the sibling. And then eventually my youngest was then also diagnosed. And then so then I was lucky that Lansdowne Children's Center eventually, after being like, on wait lists and stuff like that, because that's always the hardest thing, right? You're on all these wait lists to try to meet different people and programs and get supports to help them. So eventually, I was involved with them, and I got to speak to different therapists there. And, we just started working with my boys. At one point, they even put my oldest for a little bit on different like ADHD kind of medicines, because he was so active and everything. And, it was a lot. And considering the fact that I had like, this little baby as well. But and I know it works for some people, but I'm so happy that we didn't stick to that, because around that same time, so he was probably about 4 now at this point, they were going to, he was going to be part of this other program called IBI, and it's Intensive Behavioral Intervention, I think is what the acronym is. So, and I'm so grateful for that, because right around the same time that he was beginning different ADHD type of medicines, this started, and I was like, okay, no, we're figuring out another way to do this. Also because I suffered, I still suffer from depression and anxiety and stuff like that. And I had been put on medication since I was like 12, 13 years old and I didn't want that for my children. I didn't want them to be constantly medicated and different things. Like there had to be another way. And at this point, I already have had Reiki under my belt. I was already a Reiki master. I was very much more into the spiritual, seeing energy, feeling energy, knowing energy and stuff like that. But at the same time, when you're living in it, like anything, right? We're so good at being able to help others that we kind of forget how to help ourselves, right? We forget to take our own advice. And that was a lot of it. But at the same time, even when I was pregnant with my boys, like I felt it. Like I felt like, no, there's something special. Like these are going to be very in tune children. Like I just felt that, and I knew that. And so it was still very much something that it was part of our daily practice at home, right? Like as much as it was very overwhelming, I was on survivor mode like all the time. Like that's how I lived. I was constantly in this survival mode, and as much as I adored my boys and I just, they were everything to me, but I had to also deal with the guilt that I was feeling of not enjoying being a mom. I didn't get to enjoy being a mom for a very, very, very long time. A very long time. I didn't get the luxury of being a mom. I was everything else. I had to put on so many different hats. I had to be what, I have family members still to this day saying, you're such a hard ass. I'm like, I had to be a hard ass. I had to stick to routines. I had to stick to follow through. Biggest lesson, the biggest thing you learn. And, with this journey is the follow through. If you say you're going to do something or not do something, you have to do it, because children, whether they're on the spectrum or not, they are so smart and they will take a little bit of an inch, right? So there's that too. But my biggest thing was, so back to, like I was saying, about how, I've had so many people ask me to share my story, to share what I did with my boys and how they've become who they are. So the biggest thing, because again, being such a spiritual type of metaphysical person, right? Having this faith, in God, and again, I'm going to use God, even though I know it triggers a lot of people, and people have their own conception of what the word and identity of God is. But that's just too much now to try to explain in the video. So I'm still going to just use the word God. So, in source, in energy, in the universe, because I seen it. And, you know, I was constantly doing Reiki on my boys, constantly. Anytime I would touch them, anything, I was constantly pouring Reiki energy into our space. You know, I used, you know, and a big thing too, because of their sensitivities, I, you know, was doing research and learning to make different things so that it was more sensitive, like, you know, on them. And so, you know, I was doing things with essential oils. I was making bath bombs to help them with sleep and calm, with colds and flus. Um, you know, I was playing singing bowls, just anything I could do to calm our energy in our space, because our space is our little haven, right? It's where we're the most sacred. It's where we're the most safe. And I needed them to feel that. I needed them to always have that safe space. And sure, now I realize that I'm that safe space, right? Ooh, I'm gonna get emotional. I realize that I'm that safe space for them. And now that they're older, they tell me that too, that I'm their constant, right? And that no one else understands them as much as I do. And even though sometimes they will say that, Mom, you're a blessing and a curse all at the same time, because they, you know, they say, you say you can't read minds, Mom, but then you do these things, right? And so because I can read their energies so much now, and I just know, like, I already can tell, like, something's not right, you know, and then eventually it unfolds, and you're like, oh, God, Mom's right. You know, like, she already knew something was up. So my main thing is when I do speak to people, right? And one thing that some of the other, like, therapist workers through Lansdowne and stuff like that, like, when they talk to me, you know, they often say that, you know, like, and I saw it too because of the different support groups and everything that I was in, right? Parents struggle so much with the label, right? They struggle so much with the label. And the way I always saw it is that label, getting that diagnosis, is what's going to support my children. That's all I cared about. Sure, okay, I didn't need them. I didn't want them having every single, like, label out there, because that's just too much too, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not seeking that attention for them to try to get, you know, if it's not necessary. But they need that they needed that label. They needed that diagnosis so that they could get supports at school. So I could get supports to help them at home. So I could get them involved in programs. And for myself, again, here I am, this single mom raising these two boys on my own, right? And I have my own issues. I have my own struggles, my own anxieties, my own depression, right? Like, you know, so I was, you know, I'm struggling as a human myself, but yet at the same time, I had to, like, keep pushing that down and forcing myself to show up for my boys. Always. It didn't matter. It didn't matter what I was feeling. And again, I'm not healthy, right? Clearly not healthy. But yeah, like, so the biggest thing I often, like, I guess the biggest revelation I've received in all of this is, one, the label doesn't define my child. They are more than their autism spectrum, than their autism diagnosis, right? They are more than the other diagnosis they've received, the mild intellectual disability, the communication disability. You know, like, they're more than that, right? It's just a part or a piece of who they are, but it's not their whole story, right? And it took some time where, like, in the beginning, yes, like I said, I had to be a hard ass, right? Because I needed to help give them enough skills, enough tools to function, to be able to have quality of life, right? Where, and also too, because I knew I couldn't keep running on those empty fuels. I couldn't do that permanently forever, because I'm like paying for that now with other, health issues now, right? So it's like I'm paying for that now because I had to. There was no other choice. There was no other supports. My mom, she did try to help me, but she has so many health issues. She was in bed most of the time too, like, and where she was living. So I technically had that on top of me too, being that support system for my mom too. But anyway, so, and yeah, so I am on the buses all the time because I didn't have a car then either. So I'm on a bus back and forth, walking, doing whatever I needed to do. But so like I said, my biggest revelation in all of this is, one, understanding that they need those labels. They need that identification so that they can get support, and so that you as a parent could get support for yourself and to support your children. The other biggest thing is our ego. We need to let go of our ego because it's about them, your children, not you. Who cares? I'm sure people looked at me thinking, oh my gosh, like, I'm sure they had lots of things to say, when I was out and about with my children. But I can't do anything about that, right? And I'm not going to wear a shirt that keeps saying my children are autistic, be patient, be a decent human. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's so much where you just have to you're going to have to block that shit out, because it's about you doing what needs to be done for your child and you, so that you can reach a point where then you get to enjoy them. And now finally, it was probably when they were already 13, 14, that I really, really got to enjoy them. And now, I guess you can say, like, I get to reap those benefits now of all those years of the struggles, the crying, the not sleeping, everything, the constantly feeling like a failure, right? Not knowing how I was going to make it, basically. I didn't know. I still say, I don't know where I found the strength. I don't know where I found the energy to do all that I needed to do. But the biggest thing, like I said, it's just what helped me was realizing that it's not about me, it's about my children. It's not about what I wanted for them. Like, yes, like I said, I did all that I could to help give them the tools and skills so that they could have a quality of life, so that then they can figure it out for themselves, who they want to be and what they want to be. And that's the other biggest thing, is giving them that space where even in between all the hardcore, routines that you have to teach them, the lessons that you're constantly, doing, like, it's just, the constant work of using the ABA, like the different strategies that they give you with working with children with autism. Besides just all that, is still giving them space to show you who they are, to show you what they're interested in, to show you what they like. And then, and seeing that, like, excitement in them, right? Like, you get to see these little humans evolve and grow. And it's just amazing to see what shows up in those layers as it unfolds, right? And that's like such a big thing. And it's like, and like, and I know my story is very different than other parents out there, and I'm not going to sit here and say that I know what you're going through, because I don't, right? We're all having our own individual experience. But I also realize that there's just so much more, and they are so intelligent. They're so smart, and they just want to be loved. They just want to be seen. They want to be seen beyond the label. They want us to be, it's like, you know, like sometimes too, like people ask me like, oh, you know, have you seen this show? It's around autism, blah, blah, blah. And sure, maybe I'll watch a couple episodes, but then I'm just like, but that's my life. My life is in this bubble of autism. I don't need to watch TV shows about it. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, I don't need to see that, right? Like, because it's still more than that. Like, I want to see beyond what the expectations are, right? And that was another big thing too, is again, you know, like, yes, you have these support systems, these programs, these therapists that are trained, and yes, but at the same time, it's also understanding that yes, you can take what they give you and try to apply it and see what works, but also understanding that your child is your child. They're their own little being. They're their own personality, and there's things that's not gonna resonate with them too. Like, they are sovereign little beings. So it's understanding that too. Like, there's no one way, and it's not set in stone. It's not law. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's very much like, honestly, being a parent, whether your child is autistic or not, it's hit and miss, right? It's always trial by error kind of thing, right? It's like, okay, let's try this today, and sometimes what works this week won't work next week, and that was another thing. You're just constantly learning and growing and evolving. But yeah, like, it's just, if there's one thing that I could share and put out there, is when you look at your child, or you look at the person that you're, you know, you're the caregiver for, try to see them. Try to see them, not just this person who has a special need. You know, like, try to see them, you know, try to help them unfold their layers too, right? And help them to explore who they are, and just give them space to feel safe and secure, so that they feel, I can't even think of the word, but it's making me emotional again anyways. But be that safe space. That's all I can say, is be that safe space. Because when you're that safe space for them, it's also you being that safe space for you. Because it'll be just filled with love. And that's what anybody wants, right? Is that love. And to know that they're not broken, right? That's the other thing too, is never let your child ever feel like they're broken, that they're any less than. It just means coming up with new plans, new strategies. That's all it means. And that's what I tell my boys all the time too. I'm like, we just have to keep trying new ways to help you understand until you get it, right? And that's what we do. And also understanding that there might be some points where, you know what, it's just not your thing. But let's try to do enough so that you can at least make it through, right? Like with school's a big one, where there's so many things that it's just not their cup of tea. So it's like, okay, well, what can we do to at least help you do what needs to be done, so that you can process through and progress, right? So, and that's like the other big thing too. It's understanding that it's just like us, right? Sometimes we get so wrapped up again in the label that we forget too that they're still just human, just like us. They're going to have their struggles. Not everything is our cup of tea. Not everything is going to work for us. You know, we're going to have our own dislikes and likes, and it's learning to adjust, right? And kind of go with the ebb and flow. So for right now, I think I'm going to leave that there. I hope this maybe helped in some way. And, you know, it gives you a little bit more access into who I am and kind of what I'm experiencing with my boys, you know, my life to this point, and just, and because of this too, so many changes are coming for me and how I'm operating for myself, operating with my boys, and kind of like where I'm taking, I guess, my business. I don't know what to call it. It was never really felt like a business, but you know what I mean? Like kind of like how I've been advertising, but I really feel like there's this big shift coming where it's not going to be so much anymore about doing these one-on-one services like I have been doing with people. I really feel like I'm shifting into a new way of being in true service in the way I felt like I needed to be, because I've always wanted, like, I knew, it's not even a want, it's just like I said, it's like who I am, right? Like it's like breathing for me, and there's just this feeling of constantly of being in service. I knew I needed to be in service, but I just, all the different ways I was trying, it just never worked, and I feel it just never felt aligned. And I feel like right now what is coming through is more of being pulled towards creating this community, be it online or in person, and focusing on helping others by doing, different gatherings, events, meditation circles, creating support groups with meditation, again, self-care for families, for parents, caregivers of those, who have children with autism or other special needs. And I really want to start bringing that forward. And so that's what that's kind of where I'm leading right now and working to. So you're going to be seeing some changes on my channel and on my Instagram page and probably my website and all that stuff in the coming months. So it's going to be very different. And with that too, I just want to thank Maria DC. If you haven't checked her out, please do. She's on YouTube. She's on Instagram. She's on Twitter. I'll tag her information in the description box. She's just wonderful, and she's also been a big part in helping me to recognize these aspects in myself that I've been kind of, I guess, afraid to step into. So thank you so much for being here. Love you all. You are loved. You are seen. You are safe. You are whole. Until next time.